This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Subscribe to the podcast Beyond Politics. They host some of the biggest names and smartest minds. Beyond Politics is from a former Democratic congressman who helped ignite Barack Obama's campaign and a former campaign manager and political columnist. They go beyond the usual chatter on politics, news, science, and books. It's politics and everything beyond. On Beyond Politics, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Broadcasting live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and in the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Monday. Good to be with you today. Matt and Patrick, guest free today, but you're more than welcome to call on in. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. We'd love to hear from you. Patrick, how was your weekend?
Good. I went out to a local Pride. Our station had a booth in suburban Minneapolis. That's what I did Saturday. It was a great day to be out. It was a huge turnout. I went to the same Pride Festival last year. Far more people there this year.
That's one of the cool things about Pride that's happening everywhere right now is that you're getting every weekend you're getting a major festival. You were in Golden Valley in the Twin Cities Metro, right? That was yesterday.
Saturday, which for Chicago, that's about 5 miles west of Minneapolis. So.
I know there's a major one. You and I went to the one next year. That's up this next weekend. The major city one's the last weekend of June here in town. I know Chicago's got a whole bunch. I think it's fantastic. Every one of those is so much fun. It is so much fun. If you haven't been to one, it's a hoot. And stop being uptight. Go. Have a good time with that. You will have a good time. It is amazing. And if not only do you get good merch, you got the food trucks. I love good food trucks, especially ones. Did they have any? You were there when you're there. Did you have any food trucks that had icy treats?
I don't see anything like that.
Come on, man. I know there's a place in Kanab, Utah. I know, the crossroads. Kanab, Utah. There's a food truck there. I mean, every restaurant in that town sucked. And I do mean sucked. They were bad. And so we were losing hope. And then they had a frozen treat, kind of like one of those old-fashioned ices where they put the flavor on there. It was fantastic. It was organic, which I couldn't believe, and it was brilliant. I love me, when it comes to the heat of summertime, a frosty treat. I am a big fan of that. So if I'm the guy running down, the grown adult running down the street with money in my hand when the ice cream truck comes by. That's what I want. When I grew up in Rhode Island where they had the Dells trucks. And that was, just perfection. The frozen lemonade, the Italians, you guys did a great job with that. I grew up on Dells. I love a cool icy treat. Patrick, if you can have a cool icy treat, what is your go-to icy treat in the summer?
I do like ice cream.
What kind? Do you like the ice cream bar, just an ice cream cone? What do you like?
Ice cream sandwiches. That sounds
nice.
Now that you mention it, there was a Ben and Jerry's truck. When you said icy treat, I thought you meant those rainbow-colored fruit freezy stick things.
Oh, no, not though. Well, those are okay. Those in a pinch will do. Those will do in a pinch. Nice on the ice cream sandwich. Let's weigh in on the real controversial topic here. Are you a purist on the ice cream sandwich with that, brown cake topping and bottom? Or are you one of these people that loves the new cookie versions, which you can find everywhere?
Oh, give me the cookies.
Oh, what flavor? Chocolate chip?
Chocolate chip, that's a good start, but peanut butter is also great, too.
Oh, gosh. I had a peanut butter chocolate chip with chocolate ice cream inside. That was, thank you. Yeah. I had a sexual moment with that. Thank you. I appreciate that. See all pictures of Matt with food. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. You know where they needed some of those icy treats was this weekend in Las Vegas. Holy God, was it god-awful hot. And if you've ever been to Vegas when it gets really hot, nothing matches the heat better than the smell of urine everywhere. Holy God, is that just, boy, feels like I'm in a portable toilet all the time. And hot, a hot sauna portable toilet. Hot. Vegas. Yes, Vegas, call me. I'll be your next marketing guy. But that aside, even something more festering showed up in Vegas this weekend. Donald Trump. He spoke in Vegas. Now, I want to start off by bringing up the fact that pretty much everything about this rally was an absolute joke. Hal Sparks brought up the point earlier today that you had people there that, okay, this venue only fit like 3,000 people. This venue only fit 3,000 people. It was pretty much completely empty behind the press, and the area behind the press was part of that 3,000 people. Hardly anyone showed up. Now, that's not too big of a deal. I mean, it's 104 degrees and you're required to wait in the sun all day. Yeah, I can get that. That's not a big deal. But then just own that. You know, it was a really hot day. We didn't really have the turnout we wanted, but the people that did come on out had a good time. Fine. Nope. We had 20,000 people here in a venue that fit 3,000. That was not even full. Also pointed out that there are ads on Craigslist to get people out there, and my guess is, if you've seen the video, Trump starts speaking. Within 10 minutes of Trump starting to speak, there's a massive exodus out of the arena. My guess is those were the Craigslist paid attendees. That basically they fulfilled their time requirement. As soon as Trump started speaking, they could leave, and they got out of there. But there was an actual exodus from there. You could hear Trump speaking in the background, and they're all leaving. You know, it's all a dog and pony show. Now, why I bring those two things up to begin with is I have to admit I am somewhat bugged by this insane double standard that exists in this presidential election. The narrative this weekend, on Sunday and on Monday, was thousands of people show up to rally hard against for Donald Trump, and that's okay. 2,000, so literally thousands. Literally the only minimal use of the words thousands you could use, because it sure wasn't 3,000. There was empty space there, but I want you to imagine if this was Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump. That this was a rally for Joe Biden, and it was discovered that Joe Biden was paying people via Craigslist to be attendees, that they didn't even fill up the arena, that people were leaving early. What would be the national media's narrative in that scenario? Joe Biden flops. Joe Biden has to pay people to show up for his rallies. Not even 3,000 people wanted to see Joe Biden in Vegas. Most people left as soon as Joe Biden started speaking. That would have been the narrative. But the narrative, if it's Donald Trump, it's, oh, what a massive success. No, it wasn't, man. He couldn't get... It's funny because Republicans try to have these rallies around in Illinois, Minnesota, across the country during weekdays, and no one shows up for them. And the first thing they say is, well, it's not the weekend. We're hardworking people. Here's a case where it's the weekend, and people just didn't want to go see him in a state that he's supposedly leading in, by the way, in a state whose population center is overwhelmingly the Las Vegas metro area. So he would have to be doing very well in Vegas, and they still couldn't get people to show up for this thing. Don't give me this crud. I can tell that there's just no excitement there for the guy. Trust me, I got more to get to on this that will explain exactly why there was no excitement for this guy. This guy's a freaking nutball, man. He is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I mean, he is out there at this point. stop with this fake narrative that it's an overwhelming thing. I posted the fact that this attendance was pretty paltry earlier. I immediately had two Republicans, two rightos, two MAGA heads send me, if it was so sparsely attended, explain this picture. It's clearly the fans of the Vegas Golden Knights celebrating their Stanley Cup championship. They're all wearing Vegas Golden Knights jerseys. And it was night. It was a nighttime picture. This was a daytime rally. Oh, God. You guys, idiots, you're so desperate to do this. And the disappointing part, though, is the national news media, which once again portrayed this as a massive, successful rally. And none of this would have been reported that way if it was Joe Biden. Hands down. Hardly anyone showed up for it. People left as soon as Trump started speaking, and they had to pay people to get into the seats. Tells you everything about Trump's organic, appeal to the masses. No, there isn't one. It is all theater. It is all movie special effects and makeup. And really bad makeup, if I could be honest with you. Trump on Sunday spoke in Las Vegas, at one point veering off into discussions about this was, okay, at this point you have to ask the question how mentally stable this man is. He went into attacks about shark attacks. Okay, so he's comparing himself to Joe Biden's environmental policies, all right? And particularly in regards to electric vehicles. And we somehow end up with sharks and batteries underwater. It must be because of MIT, my relationship with MIT. Very smart, I say. What would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery is now underwater and there's shark that's approximately 10 yards over there? By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Trump said before derailing the conversation with his shark attack story, but then rejoins the original tale about sinking the boat and said, do I get electrocuted or do I jump over by the shark? He then proclaims he'd rather be electrocuted. I'm not going near the shark. Once again, this entire story was basically started by, let me contrast my position with Joe Biden's on environmental policies, including electric cars. Shark! Let's go through this because this is insanity. First of all, I guarantee you MIT wants nothing to do with this. I don't know why MIT is like, why are you dragging us into this, man? MIT is like, no, leave us out of this. What would happen if a boat sank from its weight? Dude, that's not a boat, that's a rock. Okay? Do you understand when you use the term boat, it's not describing something that naturally sinks when you put it. We put it in the water and guess what? It sank. I guess we're not going anywhere. That's not a boat. That's a rock. Okay? Do you not understand what the difference between a boat and a rock is? Apparently not. Hey, there's more on this to come and more from Vegas. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Monday. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Monday. Good to have you with us today. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. So, to recap the touching points on the shark, battery, car, MIT, how does a boat work thing. First of all, MIT doesn't want anything to do with this, Donald Trump. Second of all, boats are not rocks. Boats are designed to float. So, boats sink from its weight. To have this tremendously powerful battery. The battery is now underwater. Okay, let's get to our third point here. You do understand boats have batteries on them right now. We actually just had up on Lake Superior, one of the taconite haulers up there actually started sinking, and they don't know why, actually, now. They thought it hit something by Isle Royal as it was heading for Thunder Bay, Canada, but it sounds like it might have just started leaking on its own, which, you might want to fix that. But they managed to get the boat into port. But if that boat was to sink, trust me, there's a lot of batteries on that boat that are now underwater. That's something that does happen. he just, I guess, is Donald like taking like D cells into the bathtub with him? Is Donald crying in the bathtub because my boat is floating? You know it's supposed to sink. Do not go on Donald Trump's boat. Do not. No, that's a bad idea. So batteries already on boats, FYI. Now, let's just, for fun, let's just imagine this boat is sinking. And for some reason, a shark, who are kind of, they're in the hunting mood, they kind of get a little excited. But if boats are raining down on them underwater, they don't generally sit around 10 feet away from that going, hey, wow, look at that. Hope there's no battery in there. Was Donald driving? Usually the shark will say, I'm out of here. I don't need this. Bye. So I don't think the shark is going to get like box seats for the sinking event. But there's a shark 10 feet over there. By the way, lots of shark attacks lately. Dude, he is like a 2-year-old with keys. You can just jangle them in front of him, and he loses focus almost instantly. Anyway, eventually he did come back around to the fascinating tale. Do I get electrocuted? Well, I don't think you're going to get electrocuted because, once again, battery's there. I mean, if you're like touching the battery, maybe. But it doesn't like there's like a battery EMP zone that you had to be away from. Or do I jump over by the shark? Now, okay, I have been in swimming pools before. Have you tried to jump in water? There's a thing called swimming, Donald. I mean, I know you seem like such the exercise buff. But there's a thing called swimming, which is how you actually move underwater. You don't jump. You're not breaking it down and, break dancing over to the shark that's, for some reason, 10 feet away from the sinking boat. That's not what happened. And, of course, I'm going to imagine if you did jump over to the shark probably wouldn't bite you anyway because they're like, what? I'm out of here. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you would be described by most sharks as a warning buoy with the orange tint to your skin. Yeah, or the other way too. But hello, shark. I'm an orange. Oh, needless to say, I think we all need to go to the beach with Donald Trump at some point. What do you think, Patrick?
Does shark meat taste good with ketchup?
Yeah. He's underwater jumping around, avoiding the battery, with talking to his MIT friends. And he's frantically like pulling every bottle of ketchup he has out of his pocket because he doesn't want to be I'll be so appetizing for the shark. Sharks love ketchup. I watch Jaws. This guy is cuckoo for freaking Cocoa Puffs. This was one moment of this speech, by the way. He then said he'd rather be electrocuted. I'm not going near the shark. Trust me, I don't think the shark wants you nearby either. What's that smell? Ugh. Here's another thing he said. I'm going to read this. This is verbatim from the speech. Because I don't want anyone going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care. Okay. Are you talking to the shark? Sorry. Because I don't want anyone going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care. Reacting to Trump's speech on Sunday at the rally in scorching Vegas, MSNBC contributor Donnie Deutsch hammered the former president for calling the January 6 rioters hostages before accusing him of creating a fake reality for his supporters. Deutsch suggested Democrats will use footage of Trump's fans storming the Capitol and attacking the Capitol Police as the election nears. Let's start with Donald Trump, the host prompted the guest. Let's not. This is not a new refrain. Him praising the January 6th insurrectionists, now calling them heroes and contrasting them with the Capitol Police, just a new low. We also know the word hostages, Deutsch replied. You know what's going on with Israel. We have hostages. We all knew well, and sadly, to call them hostages is ridiculous. January 6th all of a sudden now is a thing because he's branded it January 6th, J6, and that the police said, come on in. It's just as if the videotape never existed, as if we never saw the footage. It's just amazing how we can defy any sense of reality and his followers believe it. And that's the truth. Is he can say anything, and his followers will believe it. He can say anything he wants. You know, it's been a few years. We just got to continue to refresh people's memories. When you see it, you just wonder, how can anybody vote for this guy who relishes these people, who calls these people champions, who calls these people heroes, victims, hostages? You're staring at this and saying, what planet am I on? I mean, yeah. I mean, there's that little nugget, too. By the way, also, there was tons of this. He short-circuited a few times. He had multiple – he spent like the first 10 minutes of his rally railing against the teleprompter not working correctly. Now, reminder, this is a guy who his supporters love him because he insists he doesn't use a teleprompter. Joe Biden is, I don't need a teleprompter. And here he is yet once again at a rally, and his teleprompter is malfunctioning, I'm going to guess because of the heat. Patrick brought up a good point during the break there, is why wouldn't you just have this thing in the evening? Maybe he had a ketchup buffet he had to get to, but he had to get to bed early because the shark story scared him. But the teleprompter, it could easily not be working because it's so hot outside. Yet you're sitting there. I should fire everybody. These people. I need my teleprompter. Why can't I have my teleprompter? He clearly is not well. Donald Trump is clearly not well. And we have to step back and start asking the question, why is the news media ignoring the reality we see within our eyes, exactly like they basically are ignoring these attempts to change January 6th into something else? We'll take a break, come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the afternoons on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Monday. Good to have you with us. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. By the way, Trump was not the only absolute freaking moron out in Vegas yesterday. It's not easy being Greene because Marjorie was there. Margie! I mean, I work out and all, but I mean, man. Anyway, she didn't put. Okay, she actually said the following statement, which it is amazing how stupid she is. I mean, she's not. This is getting to Tommy Tuberville level of stupid. If you think gas prices are high now, wait until you're forced to drive an electric vehicle. Let that logic problem roll around in your head. Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, I imagine gas prices will be dirt cheap because if everyone's getting a mandatory electric vehicle, the gas prices are going to plummet. They're going to have such a surplus on their hands, they're not going to know what to do with. So that would be my guess. But once again, this is a woman that went out there and she said, if you think gas prices are high now, wait until you're forced to drive an electric vehicle. Wow. There is one side of what Marjorie had to say that I want to put out the alarm bells really quick, if I may. And that is in regards to this new rhetoric which the Trump campaign has been pushing, that in trying to make his conviction into something noble and righteous. she argued Donald Trump was just like Jesus. Yes, that Jesus. Because the Christian Savior was a convicted felon. Greene made did Jesus kind of try to hide hush money payments to a porn star that he had sex with to basically try to help his campaign? I don't remember that story in Jesus. Is that in Luke, John? I don't remember that one. I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I've read the entire Bible. I don't remember the Jesus and the porn star payout section of that. Is that Leviticus? Could be Leviticus. Leviticus has some crazy stuff in it, man. Corinthians. All right. There you go. All right. Greene made the remarks while speaking at Trump's rally. This is blank. You don't want to know something? Once again, this is a sitting congresswoman who basically gets out to this rally and devolves into swearing at the crowd. This is blank. You want to know something? We're not going to tolerate it. The Democrats and the fake news media want to constantly talk about, President Trump is a convicted felon. Well, want to know something? The man I worship is also a convicted felon. He was murdered on a Roman cross. Greene said Trump's conviction in New York hush money trial amounted to political corruption. No, you know what's corruption is you basically trying to argue that Jesus and Donald Trump have something in common. This is by design. Now, I judging by, Donnie Pudding head over there, I don't think it's coming from his mind. But clearly his campaign is pushing this. Trump is Jesus, so Jesus is on the ballot. And if Jesus loses, well, then we need to go out and protect Jesus. I have been saying there is this rhetoric that is originating from the right now, which is highly dangerous. This idea, and I've said that if Donald Trump loses this election, fair and square, like 2020, his only chance, because he can't bank on Kamala Harris throwing it back to the Congress to help him, his only chance is to try to overthrow the government of the United States in the 2 months between the election and when the electoral votes are counted. And I think that there are elements within his campaign who are freely talking about, well, considering this is Jesus and Jesus is on the ballot, if they vote this down, you might as well get your guns and go out and fight for Jesus, a.k.a. Donald Trump. Now, I am a Christian. Once again, religious disclaimer. You do or don't do whatever it is you do or don't want to do. I'm a Christian. I got a nice little Lutheran church. Very welcoming. Would be aghast by this comparison. But these new modern-day evangelicals want to basically, who have become addicted to the political power they have amassed by forsaking the Bible and Christian teachings for the power of politics, do not want to let that power go. And so they will allow, think about what she is saying and how is it not every single religious leader in this country is saying, how dare you? Because I guarantee you this, if Joe Biden had surrogates telling him he's Jesus on earth or implying it like they are, every single religious denomination in this country would be out there saying, whoa, 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 how dare you take our Lord and Savior and do this to him? But Donald Trump does it, and there's a whole bunch of Christian leaders in all the different denominations who sit there and clench because they do not want to upset the Republicans. So they tolerate the blasphemy, the outrageous blasphemy that is this comparison. I have been very critical of the left when they compare Trump to Hitler because Hitler was Hitler. Now, I don't know what eventually Trump's aspirations are, but I will be very blunt. He does cosplay Hitler a lot. I don't think when someone cosplays, Spock at a Star Trek convention, they're Spock. But eventually that person takes off the pointy ears and the Star Trek shirt and goes back to their life as Bill. That's what it is. Sometimes I wonder when's Trump taking off the Nazi cosplay stuff because he wears it a lot. But I can tell you right now, if we're going to hold a comparison of who Trump is more like, well, it ain't like Jesus. And considering babies in cages, deporting them all, using the exact same rhetoric that the Nazis used against his enemies today, he's far closer on the Nazi side than he is on the Jesus side. And shame on all you religions out there, any religion that would allow this man to go on out there and take the reason you're Christian. Don't give me Timothy. Don't give me Romans. Don't give me Corinthians. Don't give me Leviticus. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the 4 stories of the Bible that basically, the Gospels of the Bible that tell you the story of Jesus. The reason that Christians are Christian. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And anyone that reads those 4 books and thinks that Donald Trump has anything to do with Jesus is a fool. So your churches, you wonder why there's a massive exodus, ironically, from your church pews lately? It's because you don't have the guts to sit there and say what you need to say. That Donald Trump is sure not Jesus. And the comparison that Donald Trump, a man who was found guilty on 34 counts because he had sex with a porn star while his wife was home with his newborn child, then tried to cover it up after other sex scandals came to light, the Karen McDougal scandal and the Access Hollywood tape, frantically tried to cover up so he could win the presidency, which he did, and then basically hid the payments to the porn star to try to keep his image as clean as possible. The fact that that's what you are comparing Jesus dying for our sins on the cross. Once again, you do or don't do whatever it is you do or don't want to do. I'm just bringing up the point. Come on. I'm sorry. If I was a priest or a pastor or a lay leader at any church and Marjorie Taylor Greene came to the door, I would not let her in. I would say, you're a blasphemer. You don't come into my house of worship until you recant what you said about Donald Trump being just like Jesus. Seriously. Now, once again, religious disclaimer. You do or don't do whatever it is you do or don't want to do. I am a Christian, and it infuriates me to see my religion that is based on love, peace, welcoming, compassion turned into this ugly weapon. And the same people who gleefully call for it to be weaponized, talking about, we don't hate anybody, but just you people are horrible and wrong. We don't hate you, though. Yeah, I see who you guys are. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. I got another breaking story, too. This is out of Rolling Stone. Alito, that guy, Mr. There isn't a bus that man can't throw his wife under. How about I say it like that? I can't wait for him to blame his wife for this one. He spoke candidly about the ideological battle between the left and the right, discussing the difficulty of living peacefully with ideological opponents in the face of fundamentalist differences that can't be compromised. He endorsed what his interlocutor described as necessary fight to return our country to a place of godliness, and Alito offered a blunt assessment of how America's polarization will ultimately be resolved. One side or the other is going to win. This is a Supreme Court justice. Alito made these remarks in a conversation at the Supreme Court Historical Society's annual dinner on June 3rd, a function that is known to right-wing activists as an opportunity to buttonhole Supreme Court justices. His comments were recorded by Lauren Windsor, a liberal documentary filmmaker. Windsor attended the dinner as a dues-paying member of the society under her real name, along with her colleagues. She asked questions of the justice as though she was a religious conservative, though. The justice's unguarded comments highlight the degree in which Alito makes little effort to present himself as a neutral umpire calling judicial balls and strikes, but rather a partisan member of the hard-right judicial faction that's empowered to make life-altering decisions for every American. The recording, which is provided exclusively to Rolling Stone, captures Windsor approaching Alito at the event and reminding him that they spoke at the same function a year earlier when she asked him a question about political polarization. In the intervening year, she tells the justice her views on the matter had changed. I don't know what we can negotiate with the left in the way that needs to be happening for the polarization to end. I think it's a matter of, like, winning. I know you're probably right, Alito replies. On one side or the other is going to win. I don't know. I mean, there can't be a way of working the way of living together peacefully, but it's difficult, because there are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised. So he's basically admitting at this point he's already got his opinions already pre-written for cases that are going to come to the Supreme Court. So it's not like you're going to split the difference. Windsor goes on to tell Alito, people in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that to return our country to a place of godliness. I agree with you. This is a Supreme Court justice, by the way, whose job it is to uphold the separation of church and state. And he's basically saying, I've already predetermined I'm going to side with Christians, period. Wow. He basically authored the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, which reversed 5 decades of settled law and ended the constitutional right to abortion. Similar questions Windsor asked Chief Justice John Roberts. At the same time, same event elicited a far different response. In an audio recording of that exchange, Roberts takes issue with Windsor's assertion that the nation is unusually polarized historically, citing the high tensions of the Vietnam War era, for example. He also insists the Supreme Court's current role is not exceptional. The idea that the court is in the middle of a lot of tumultuous stuff going on is nothing new. Pressed on whether the court has an obligation to put country on a more moral path, Roberts turns the tables on her. And would you want me to be in charge of putting the nation on a moral path, he argues instead? That's for the people we elect, not for our lawyers, presented with a claim that America is a Christian nation and the Supreme Court should be guiding us on that path. Roberts again disagrees, citing that the perspectives of the Jewish and Muslim friends before asserting it's not our job to do that. It is our job to decide the case the best we can. John Roberts might end up being the guy that saves this country because he basically, now, I'm not sure, maybe he knew who she was. But he answers like he rules in his cases, that my job is not here to put my personal opinion ahead. But now we have himself, Justice Alito, saying when it comes to these cases, he has already made up his mind and made up his decisions on how he is going to rule before the arguments are even presented to him. You got to impeach him off that court at this point. It's the Matt McNeil Show. It's the Matt McNeil Show once again here on your Monday. Nice to have you with us today. I hope you're having a good week to start off, a good day to start off the week here. 952-946-6205. We have to talk about how remarkable that audio tape is. And this is, okay, we know, Fox News today went after Justice Brown basically with, I called this on Friday where they said Beyonce tickets. They're talking about how dare that justice take Beyonce tickets. Even though that same report says of $4.7 million worth of gifts, Thomas alone has taken $4 million worth of gifts, which is by far tells you he's compromised. I mean, he loves living a lifestyle he just can't afford. And so his vote is clearly bought and paid for, like the trips that he goes on. Alito, of course, once again, who has well gotten these 5-star vacations paid for by donors, just is coming off the absolutely laughable, I had no idea the flag upside down at my house was upside down. I guess it's my wife's fault. Blame her. There's another house I had with a January 6th supporting flag. I had no idea. But here he is. He's at this event, which is known you'll be able to chat with conservatives. So it's the level of access. All it takes is you buying a dues and paying the membership, and you can get access to a Supreme Court justice. And they freely admit he's on the side of the extreme far right, which means January 6th and insurrectionists, that he's going to rule on their behalf, that's already predetermined, that he is already, it doesn't matter what your arguments are. If the right wants something to be ruled in a certain way, Justice Alito will rule that way. and that he's already spitting in the face of a major tenet of this country's law, the separation of church and state, which is indeed what the founding fathers wanted. They did not want, many of them had come from countries where they were religiously persecuted. They did not want persecution in this country. They did not want to set a state religion. And here he is saying, let's do it. Let's set the state religion. The consequences of this guy, who, once again, I am firmly of the mindset that he leaked the Dobbs decision because he wanted to basically force Roberts and any other wavering justice to stand by him because they would have all the conservatives coming out there. Because the funny thing is, they thought that 80% of the country did not want abortion rights. Hilarious. They are now basically regretting that, but that's all him. And he doesn't care. He's just doing what he wants to do. The law doesn't matter for Justice Alito. He's just doing what he wants to do at this point. Just a disgrace. The consequences of the Dobbs decision and this blind, not blind justice, but blind obedience to the right that a Supreme Court justice is proudly bragging about was kind of exposed by Kamala Harris, the vice president. She shared her opinion on former President Trump's potential running mates less than 5 months out of the presidential election. Trump's campaign has reportedly sent VP vetting material to Vance, Rubio, and Burgum, the guy from North Dakota. The former president's team has also requested documents from Scott, Donalds, Stefanik, and Ben Carson. Now, it's seeming like the way that's broken down, that seems like that's the way it's going to go, is that the leading contenders, it's either going to be Vance, Rubio, or Burgum. But, I don't frankly, if he needs to keep Ohio or Florida in there, he definitely it's going to be Vance or Burgum. I don't think that they're worried about South Carolina. I don't think, and frankly, I think Trump knows that there's a lot of people that support him who are racist as all get go. And so a black man on the ticket with him would not be a selling point. So I think that, and also Elise Stefanik, as loyal as she is, and she's willing to sell out anybody, the amount of misogynists within the Republican Party today, I don't think that they want her on the ticket either. In an interview with Political Playbook over the weekend, Harris targeted Trump's potential running mates over their position on abortion, which has proven to be a winning issue for Democrats, noting that some of the Republicans on his list went as far as voting against the Senate bill codifying America's right to contraception last week. Everyone on that list has supported Trump's abortion ban in their state or has called for a national ban. It's clear Trump wants an enabler. He doesn't want a governing partner. He doesn't want another Mike Pence, and I think that's clear. The litmus test, or as they're being absolutely loyal to Trump over country, or their oath of office, or frankly, the American people. Trump repeatedly attacked. Clearly, I'm going to just tell you, you're an absolute fool if you don't think that any vice presidential candidate is basically being asked, will you pardon Trump? You have to be able to pardon Trump. You've got to be able to pardon Trump on all things. Will you do so? Absolutely. That is rule number one. My guess is I don't think Trump will even serve very long. I think he'll do one last big grift. He'll try to get legislation passed through that doesn't allow him to be prosecuted anymore in New York or Georgia or Arizona where the state charges kick in. And then he'll basically resign and he'll hand it over and be acquitted, and then he'll take his money and he'll move to Russia. That's my guess. Harris also singled out Donalds, representative of Florida's 19th congressional district, over his recent comments claiming black Americans' family were together during the era of legal separation known as Jim Crow. Legal segregation known as Jim Crow. It's sadly yet another example of somebody out of Florida trying to erase or rewrite history. Trump has previously signaled he will likely announce his decision at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Well, he might not be there. He might be in jail. There's a legitimate chance he could be in jail. Harris has accepted an invitation by CBS News to debate Trump's potential running mate either July 23rd or August 13th. And if they think for 1 second that you're going to be able to push over Kamala Harris, well, good luck with that. I frankly still don't think Donald Trump is going to do the debate with Joe Biden. I honestly think that, especially when you look at what he did in Vegas, and reminder, these debates that are set up, There's no audience. Their mics can be cut off at any point, and they're going to be put on blast by the moderator who's going to ask them legitimate questions. Trump doesn't want anything to do with that. He can't talk about how boats sink because of their own weight and the battery's in the water, and so you need to jump on over to that shark over there where you could get electrocuted, and MIT and ketchup. If I'm a Trump guy, I am not letting him anywhere near a debate stage. Chicago, have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hour 2 up next. Hour number 2 of the show here on your Monday. Nice to have you with us today, Matt McNeil. Matt McNeil Show once again to start off your week. And I'm going to try to get through this very sad story, and I want to touch on this right away because I live in Hopkins, and throughout the day yesterday, our phones rang quite a bit with an Amber Alert for a young man who had disappeared, 4-year-old boy with autism. Unfortunately, there has been a conclusion to this story, and it's not a happy one. It's a very sad one. In a Monday afternoon press conference, officials announced the missing 4-year-old boy with autism was found dead in Minnehaha Creek. During the search on Monday morning, Care 11's Lula Ragoose was near Minnehaha Creek, just off a 7800 block of Powell Road, when he witnessed law enforcement and search crews pouring into the area. Officers put up a police tape to keep the public away, and the mood of the first responders was described as grim. Hopkins Police Department Captain Craig Kriegling told those gathering at the press conference that the Minnehaha Creek is running fast due to recent rains. Kriegling said officials believe at this point that the boy drowned after leaving his apartment on his own. Get to know your neighbors, get to know the people in your community, possibly if there would have been somebody that might have been seen him in a particular moment when asked what the public can do to prevent an incident like this from happening again. We ask for those people to step up and take some action, call the police, and if something is out of the ordinary, let people know. On Sunday, police said Wais Ali Muhammad wandered away from the chorus apartments in the 1200 block of Lake Street around 7:30 a.m. wearing only blue pajama bottoms. Family members say Wise had autism, could not speak, and was easily startled and scared by loud noises. So, yeah, through the day yesterday, me and pretty much every one of our neighbors searched our properties, searched our houses. Is he behind our garage? Is he over, hiding over here somewhere? Trying to find if he was around. I know a lot of people had come into Hopkins. Were helping to search a fairly wide area, and it does sound like this young boy did like water, and so. It's sounding like just a horrible, tragic accident, and obviously all my best to the family and the community there, because, this is, as a father of 3 kids myself, it's so hard and sad to hear of such a tragedy coming to a conclusion as this one has. So once again, they have indeed found the body of the young boy at Minnehaha Creek. And obviously, all our best to the family. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. I hope you had a chance to get out a little bit this weekend. I want to give credit to the Guthrie Theater. I got out on Saturday and saw Skeleton Crew, which is their current. I think is this the second to last presentation they're doing over there? I think it is. I think Little Shop of Horrors comes in next. But Skeleton Crew is there was another one called Sweat, another play that was called Sweat that was out a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And the plays that they have are these are plays which have to deal with workplace conflict in more modern times. And I got to tell you, I was so impressed with this. Skeleton Crew is about around 2008, and it's a plant in Detroit that supplies, I think it's shock absorbers to the big 3 auto manufacturers, and they're going through as much problem as anyone else. And the conflicts and the stress of what is clearly the plant is going to be closing down, and what do they do there? So obviously that was a very interesting, kind of comment. The sweat, which was a few years back, was similar. That was Pennsylvania, I think it was, and it was around the 2000s in there. I think that the presentation is absolutely spot on, and I can say this about Skeleton Crew: that is one of the best acted presentations I've seen there. That was just the 4-person cast, and all it is 4 people, but the 4-person cast was exceptional. If you get the chance to see that one before the things wraps up, please do. That one's worth it. That is a very good play, it's nice to have an option like that. It is absolutely nice to have an option like that in the city. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. I want to get into what is an absolutely chaotic problem now for the Republicans in the state of Minnesota. The whole Royce White thing. The whole Royce White thing is, I can't believe they walked into the prop of the plane like this. He clearly had more baggage than a Greyhound bus. And he was going to be a hard candidate to validate. The reason why he's there is he's a loyalist to Steve Bannon. Bannon basically threw his support about it. And once again, at these conventions, the more extreme you get, the better chance you are. And so he just was the most extreme far-right candidate available for the U.S. Senate race, and he became the nominee, which has clearly set off a lot of alarm bells across the rest of the Republican Party. Because why? Well, the obvious thing. I just do not think there is a current Republican in the state of Minnesota who could challenge Amy Klobuchar and win. I just do not see that. Even if you had a true moderate Republican, which I just don't think exists, not anymore, that and they were popular and they had name recognition or family recognition, there's no way they're going to knock off Amy Klobuchar. That's just not going to happen. So what you need to do, though, you can't just write off that race. You have to put out a candidate because, as the new polling says, and I think that this is once again still inadequate polling because I think Trump is losing badly in Minnesota, frankly. If Trump is not going to do well, what you need is someone who's going to appeal to possibly some moderates, some in the middle of the road, maybe moderate Democrat or two, to basically help the rest of the Republicans in the state win back the Minnesota House, that's their big goal this year. And obviously that Minnesota Senate race, but once again, I think that they're already they're having trouble there. So they need to have somebody with more coattails than Royce White. Royce White doesn't have coattails at all. As a matter of fact, he's got social media posts which make him pretty much unelectable. And then there's the whole thing, because remember, he ran for a House race, and there are some questionable spending things, and our good friend David Pakman, who is on the air right before our show here on the air, so you can listen in to the David Pakman show in the 2 o'clock hour locally in Minneapolis, St. Paul. He did an interview with this guy, and God bless him, because there's no chance in hell I'll ever interview him. I do not want to give him any legitimacy whatsoever. But Pakman did, and what Pakman was able to do was just by basically saying, okay, I want you to clarify what you're saying. This is what you're saying. He sounded like an absolute blithering idiot. Former NBA player running for Senate with the support of Minnesota's statewide Republican Party attacked the media in an interview as a reporter pressed him to answer why his FEC, Federal Election Commission, indicated that his 2022 campaign spent money at a strip club. Royce White appeared for an interview on Friday with David Pakman on the Progressive Host nationally syndicated show, quickly resorted to lobbing jabs at both Pacman and the Daily Beast as he faced questions about his campaign expenses. The Beast reported last week that White's failed 2022 primary campaign for the nomination to take on Ilhan Omar is the center of an FEC complaint from the election watchdog, the Campaign Legal Center, which is reporting spending which is over its reported spending to the FEC. In total, the questionable expenses flagged by the Beast and the Campaign Legal Center total in the thousands. But of particular interest was more than $1,000 spent in a single night at Gold Rush Cabaret, which described itself as a fully nude strip club on its website. Notably, Gold Rush Cabaret is in Miami, Florida, not in Minnesota. Buy local, man. Anyway, Pacman pressed White repeatedly to explain the $1,200 expense at Gold Rush Cabaret in his interview. While initially responding that the FEC filing was an error. Now, that was how he initially said it. But pivoted quickly to claiming instead that his staffers, not him, had visited the nightclub with the sole purpose of buying food. Now, once again, if it's an error, well, someone accidentally put down the strip club, the Gold Rush Cabaret. Instead, they meant the Gold Rush restaurant in Topeka, Kansas, or something like that. You know, something like that might happen. Not really well, especially if you have anyone who has any knowledge of how this stuff works. But, I mean, that could be the error. But then he completely undermines his own argument that it was an error by claiming, oh, yeah, it was staff, and they went to the nightclub for the sole purpose of buying food. Now, I have been to a strip club or two in my life. I have. Yeah. You know what I never went to the strip club for? The buffet. It's like, I mean, I don't need to know, that the Salisbury steak is really good. You know, I don't think it's kind of one of those things that many of these places are known for. What they're known for are two things, mainly strippers, which you might be able to spend a few extra bucks if you do want to get a little more intimate with them. That's usually a package that's presented as an option on the menu at a strip club. And drinks. And those are the two things they're generally known for. And drinks is way down the list. Food is not something that is a primary source of fiscal. No, it's not. It's not something that you get food at a strip. I mean, that is, okay, let's make sure we understand something. This is someone who thinks that we're all stupid idiots. I mean, really, if you're even going down this path of this argument, you just think we're all complete stupid morons that can't see you don't have an answer for this. But, okay, let's get back to that. His staffers, not him, had visited the nightclub with the sole purpose of buying food. The entirety of the $1,200 check, he asserted, was spent on the restaurant's menu offerings. It's a lot of food, man. It was recently revealed you spent campaign donations at a strip club. Is that true? Pacman said. Daily Beast is not a good source, that's for one. An irritated White said, no, they didn't say that I spent the funds at a strip club. But then the pivot, or no, let's say they didn't say that I spent the funds on strippers, White clarified. They sell food at strip clubs, don't they? Like he's trying to work his way through the problem as he's speaking. Pacman then responded, you spent the money on food at a strip club. Is that more accurate? After a back and forth, and once again, this entire time, White was trying to say it wasn't, but that's what his excuse was. His excuse was that staffers bought food at the strip club, and every time he said, well, but we're not talking about strippers, he said, no, but you're saying that the staffers bought food at a strip club. White responded to that query, I'm not saying that I spent the money. I'm saying that there was a filing on my FEC report that shouldn't have been there and potentially shouldn't have been reimbursed by somebody else who may have been at the strip club. But, hey, there is food at a strip club, so to say it was spent on strippers is not based on factual evidence. White then commented that Pacman seemed to have a lot of time on the subject of his campaign spending To which the host responded, well, that's because you're obviously lying. His excuse seems unusual at best. A quick visit to the Gold Rush Cabaret's website reveals that the establishment's food offerings are quite inexpensive. The priciest item, and my guess is not the most flavorful things you'll eat. The priciest item is an appetizer sampler including empanadas, wings, mozz sticks, and a veggie quesadilla for $25. So,
it sounds like an Applebee's with dancers.
Well, you will be feeling good in the neighborhood. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Good night, everybody.
If I had $1,200 and I was going to buy divided by $25 is what the average price of this empanadas, wings, mozz sticks, and veggie quesadilla entree, you're getting 48 of them. 48 appetizer samplers. Boy, that's some good eating. Every other item on the menu, including all entrees, are priced below $20. Alcoholic beverages are not typically permitted as part of expense staff meals under FEC guidelines. So he is basically, since he can't say it's drinks, and he clearly does not want to say, oh, yeah, I used money on strippers. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying he doesn't want to say that. His argument is his staff spent $1,200 on food at a strip club where the most expensive item on the menu is a $25 appetizer platter. And I mean, tell you what, you get real variety there. You're going to go all over the world with that one there. You're going to get all the favorite things with that. It's a lap dance of options. That's how we'll call it. It's a lap dance of options. You got a wide variety there. Many of the expenses the campaign legal center argue appear to be illegal regardless of any explanation the White campaign can provide. Other spending from the White campaign, highlighted by the group, also included a trip to a water park, dues at a fitness center, a large disbursement to itself through cash, wire transfers, and personal checks. White's campaign initially responded to local media in a statement last week, calling his filings incomplete. He has also given no explanation why the filings were submitted if they were supposedly in error. Any novice could look at my FEC filings and tell that they were incomplete, he said in a separate interview which aired on local Minnesota TV station on Sunday. By any standard, they're just incomplete. The potential illegal spending could be a serious obstacle for White. I mean, okay, I can't do that joke. Who is on track to consolidate support from the state from the Republican Party as well as Trump world, endorsed by both Bannon and in May by the Minnesota State GOP. White remains well-positioned to become the party's nominee to take on Amy Klobuchar. More on that in a second. A popular incumbent senator in November, Minnesota congressional primaries, which were set up for August. He lacks significant backing in Washington, however, where Republicans are reportedly backing naval veteran Joe Frazier for the nomination. Polling shows Klobuchar far ahead of any of the potential candidates. $25 is the most expensive thing, and he's saying his staffers who... I mean, did he get a 48? Or did he even have 48 staffers at that point? Did all 48 staffers go to the same strip club? Dude, let me make sure you understand something, Mr. White. Royce. Let me make sure you understand something. You may think you're some sort of linguistic wizard, that you think you're insanely clever. No one is buying this. And I can tell you who's not buying this is the Republican Party. Because if you pay attention to what's going on with the Republican Party, right now they're frantically trying to find anyone else but you. Because if you're the Senate nominee, the chances of the Republican Party picking up the Minnesota House are 0. But, keep thinking that you're so clever. Wow. And the Republicans did this to themselves. More on this when I do return because, there has been some other machinations working around, desperately trying to make Royce White not happen as the GOP nominee. 952-946-6205. And by the way, one of them is not exactly better. I'll get to that in a second. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Monday.
I'm the one you you can't forget about.
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. So, okay, you got the Royce White problem. And once again, if Trump and Royce White are the top of the ticket for the Republicans in the state, I don't think, I mean, seriously, all you have to do with Royce White is take his social media posts and put them up on billboards and say, vote for any Democrat but this. I mean, he's toxic as far as down ticket, races. The Republicans clearly are seeing this as a problem. So they're trying to find some way to where it not being Royce White. But sometimes another options are not necessarily better options. They bring their own different problems. Now, I don't know if you remember Alicia Gruenhagen. That's right. Gruenhagen. We've talked about her before because she's a chip off the old catcher's mitt of a face. That is Glenn Gruenhagen. Back in August 18th, 2022, reading from Blue Stem Prairie, Alicia Gruenhagen lost the primary election to be the DFL candidate in the Minnesota 7th Congressional District, but she actually did get a substantial amount of the vote. She was a Republican who ran as a DFLer to basically secure that district was never going to even have a Democrat on the ballot in the 7th District. On June 4th, the founder, Greener Pastures Natural Food Co-op in McLeod County and daughter of the climate change denying and homophobic Minnesota State Senator Glenn Gruenhagen, filed as a Republican. Hey, well, she found her actual party. In the United States Senate race, the seat is now held by Amy Klobuchar. The Republican Party Minnesota endorsed candidate is Royce White. Perhaps the young Gruenhagen Star Tribune editorial board that Royce White isn't a fit for the U.S. Senate. You think? Though in its fairness to the content of the editorial copy, it was published May 30th and only mentions White rival former naval officer Joe Frazier. Gruenhagen, Frazier, and White are 3 of 8 Republican candidates for the U.S. Senate primary in Minnesota. Democrats only have 5 choices. Who is Alicia Gruenhagen? Blue Stem suspects she's totally an apple who fell from her parents' tree. This is a mid-July 2022 post. The year of the Republican Women Shines Minnesota 7th Congressional Race shared information discovered by Forum Communications columnist Jim Shaw. There's more on the race in Jim Shaw's column. The Republican runs as a Democrat in the Forum News chain. Attention, Minnesota voters, I have a quick question for you. Who are the 2 Democratic primary candidates running for Congress in the state's 7th District in next month's primary? What you thought, you don't know. Well, you should know because one of them is actually a Republican, and I wouldn't make that up. The other candidate is Alicia Gruenhagen, who doesn't exactly push the Democratic Party agenda. On her candidate Facebook page, she proudly claims, I'm a freedom-loving, patriot, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, conservative Democrat from the heart of Minnesota's 7th District. So you might be thinking she's acting like a conservative Democrat in rural Minnesota. Well, you should know that her father is Republican State Representative Glenn Gruenhagen. Still not convinced? Then you should take a look at a picture she posted on Instagram. She was wearing leggings that say, Make America Great Again. Nobody's looking at the picture and will confuse her with Nancy Pelosi. This isn't even Gruenhagen's first time on the Democratic primary ballot. 2 years ago, she ran and lost against longtime incumbent Colin Peterson. It's very suspicious, Corin told me. I wonder what she's up to. It is baffling. It's kind of stupid. If you want to know the truth, the Minnesota 7th is going to go with whichever pathetic Republican is going to abuse them more. Just be honest. If you've heard me the last few weeks, I've been talking about how Republicans do not care about rural Minnesota. They do not care. And they are basically taking every dollar, giving it to the wealthiest corporate farms, while they're screwing over the average worker in those districts by getting rid of their farms, making sure they don't get any government benefits, making sure they don't have any health care, making sure they don't have any quality schools. But hey, maybe this time around they'll change. No, they won't. Anyway, it's just dumb because the Democrat was likely not going to beat her anyway in regards to Fischbach. So you're just wasting time and money and resources. It is baffling. The incumbent member of Congress in the 7th District is Republican and Donald Trump's bootlicker, Michelle Fischbach. She is heavily favored to win re-election. This is back in 2022. So what's the point of the Republicans such as Gruenhagen hoping to run against the Republican Fischbach in a general election? I tried to talk to Gruenhagen. I left a phone message for her. She did not return my calls. This race has been very low profile, with both candidates having little name recognition. So basically, it's going for that. There's more. In Minnesota, 7 fake DFL candidate attended 2020 Jericho March, took a selfie with Kim Crockett, the crockpot. Bluestem congratulates Gruenhagen for finding her her way home. I respect she won't find herself on the ballot in November, regardless of the messaging. Get on board, unite, and restore and renew America. That's what her thing is. I should also mention, by the way, all you freaking idiots up in the Minnesota 7th, you had Colin Peterson, who was the head of the Agriculture Committee, who you said, we can vote him out, and I guarantee you we'll just have as much representation with Michelle Fischbach. Oh, you don't have any say at all in Congress anymore, Minnesota 7. You got no say. You're basically, the Republicans there are basically outside the Ag Committee begging for scraps. But hey, yeah, no, she's going to be just the same as Colin Peterson, you idiots. Anyway, so you have that, which once again, if she ends up being, okay, so we talk about name recognition. If she ends up being the Republican nominee, there's going to be a lot of questions about why did you run as a Democratic candidate down there, which not only poisons the Republicans for you, but you're going to basically, I can't wait for your absolutely insane argument of why that's going to happen. I will say this. There's one other point here I want to bring up here. Broadcorp, who has been very vocal about how upset he is with the Republican Party that Royce White got the nomination, he has a story out that Michelle Benson, who, by the way, if they could get Benson to run, you're not going to beat Klobuchar, but you at least have a better chance at picking up the Minnesota House with that. But she apparently doesn't want to run. She did, though, back Joe Frazier in the primary. Benson said Republicans deserve a high-quality candidate. She adds she doesn't believe delegates were given the full story about Royce White. You think? So Michelle Benson is, basically she's put out a statement that she is supporting Frazier. I will. Here's your problem. The people who are the most motivated are the most insane in the Republican Party. And all it takes is Steve Bannon coming on out, from prison and saying, hey, you need to endorse Royce White. He's the guy that you want. And I just don't see how in the world the Republican Party can overcome that. Not saying they can't, but you have to expect a lot of Republicans who don't like Trump, who really do not like Royce White, to come from somewhere and vote for a guy you already know is going to get destroyed in the general election. You did this to yourself, guys. You did this to yourself. I still don't think the GOP is going to pick up the Minnesota House, but I give zero chance if Royce White is on the ballot. There's a lesser chance. There is somewhat of a chance, not a high chance. I still don't think they will, but maybe 10, 15% chance if Frazier's there. Because once again, you're having to go into a lot of suburban districts which have been trending more and more to the blue and convince them that somehow, some way, you're just not going to be a lapdog for the Republican Party and the people who are behind the scenes pulling the strings of the Republican Party. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Let's take a break, come back. More when we do return. It is the Matt McNeil Show here on your Monday. AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. So I want to preface this next story by a conversation I had with a guy from the range, big pro-miner, big Republican, big Trump fan up there. where I got to sit down with this individual and have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation, because he was really pushing the idea of the precious metals mining up by the boundary waters. And, basically the mentality was that anyone that's against this is against Minnesota. They're against Minnesota's way of life. They're against Minnesota as a state and the identity that it is, the mining and all these things. And I looked at him and I said, do you feel it's fair to say that most Minnesotans are for mining if it's done environmentally safe, or at least the best they can do it? I mean, obviously, when you're digging into the ground for, say, taconite, you're going to be doing some things which are not exactly environmentally safe. But as long as you're not leaving behind a toxic sludge or something like that, you feel that most people are for mining. And you said yes. And then I said, do you think that most people in the state are for clean water, clean air, clean land? Yes. He said, yeah, I'm 100% for that. I then said, so the real question here then, if I'm not mistaken, is whether or not we should trust the mining company to do what's right. Right? And he kind of thought about it for a little bit. And he said, yeah, I think that actually is a good point. I mean, he says, I think that they are going to do that. And I said, okay, that's fine. Do you know that they have never done it before environmentally safe? And he looked at me and he said, well, they'll do it this time environmentally safe. They said there's no consequences if they don't do it environmentally safe outside of they poison the land. You do understand that the Republicans wrote the oopsie law that basically, a company can be bankrupt and they say, oops. Well, first of all, they're never going to hold the, large international mining conglomerates responsible anyway, the Antofagastas and stuff like that. But even if they do have some teeth to try to hold the local entity, which doesn't really have any money, accountable, that they basically can say, oopsie, and then the taxpayers are there to clean it up. And I said, are you confident that they are going to do it right? And he says, well, I trust them. I said, do you trust them enough to where, I think the total amount of mining jobs in Minnesota is something like 30,000. I think it's 30,000 mining jobs in northern Minnesota. The number of tourism-related jobs in northern Minnesota is like 120,000. By far, the largest employment subsector in northern Minnesota, northeastern Minnesota, the Arrowhead region, is vacation. It is tourism. So, and that's hotels, that's resorts, that's guides, that's restaurants, all that. That is dependent on people coming up there. And I said, you do realize that if the lakes get poisoned, no one's coming up there. No one wants to go to an area where you can't swim in the water, you can't fish the lake, you can't eat the fish that come out of the lake. You can't even let your kid wade into the water. It's too dangerous. You do realize that would, if this goes wrong, that we're not just talking the mining industry is destroyed. We're talking the entire tourism industry is destroyed, which will absolutely annihilate your quality of life. And to give the guy credit, he did sort of stop and say, well, you kind of put it that way. I think I would want to have some assurance. He said, I'm still more likely to go with the mining, but they would need to make sure that you don't jeopardize the area, which I think at the end of the day, you can have this conversation with some of these people. And when you sit down and you kind of present it like that, because the real question is this: do you trust the company to not pollute the area when they have never not polluted the area before? They always have. Every one of these precious metal mines has absolutely annihilated the environment where they're at. Every one of them. When they say, we got this new technology, no. The only way you can hold them accountable is to basically write it in the agreement from the get-go. I bring this up because I have to admit I'm a little concerned with something from the DFL. Now, once again, I am going to vote DFL this year. Do not fool yourself. Joe Biden has my vote. Amy Klobuchar has my vote. My House rep will be whoever the heck is not going to be Dean Phillips, because I'm in the third district now. So whichever DFLer is not Dean Phillips will get my vote. I will vote for my local Senate DFLer and my local House DFLer. Cheryl Yu came as my House rep, and she's fantastic. I like her a lot. So my vote to the Democrats is there. But I still do occasionally have some problem with them. I mean, the whole Line 3 thing was a pretty big slap in the face. And once again, all these jobs. Well, there aren't any permanent jobs. There are very few permanent jobs with this. And the jobs that we did have didn't really go to the Minnesota union guys. Many of them went to non-union people overall. And then there was all those rapes by the union, the workers that were shipped in to work on this. There are a whole bunch of rapes in northern Minnesota that no one seemed to have any problem with. But yeah, so, and then of course there's this whole, they didn't do it right. They were shoddy. They did damage. They polluted the air. It was horrible. And Governor Walz went along with it. And that still is a sore spot for me. This is also a sore spot. No one went to the recent DFL state convention in Duluth expecting surprises. Klobuchar accepted the party's nomination. Speakers delivered a clear message which revolved around party unity and getting behind Democratic candidates. When people had announced the party, they said they were met by polished talking points and a big tent party and reassurances that they were seen and heard. But in other words, business as usual. But there was one issue the DFL party leadership had little appetite to see or to hear. On the ballot was a resolution to hold hearings on the Prove It First bill. This bill states that before a copper-nickel sulfide mine can operate in Minnesota, there must be independent proof that sulfide mining has been conducted elsewhere in the country without causing pollution, which, by the way, spoiler alert, it hasn't. It hasn't. And you are an idiot if you think, first of all, any local outfit is really the people behind the mine. You're also an idiot if the people who are really behind the mine, these international mining conglomerates like Antofagasta, care at all about the local community. They will destroy every freaking piece of land they can to get the minerals out because that's who they are. Just make sure you understand what's exactly going on here. But this is actually a really good bill. Prove it first. You can prove that you can do this? Fine, we'll let you mine. They can't do it. Despite popular support among elected officials in the DFL base, DFL leadership, which has long sought to appease mining interests, opposes the bill. This was made abundantly clear when earlier this year when DFL Senate Majority Leader Aaron Murphy canceled a hearing on the Prove It First bill. Really? In response to this attempt to silence debate on the issue, Clean Water Advocates held an open public hearing at the Capitol featuring testimony from indigenous representatives, mining experts, and witnesses to the impact of mining disasters. And once again, I'm going to go with the Native American indigenous people because they've been right every time. And as opposed to, 50 years down the road where you build a monument to where, oops, we screwed up. We should have listened to the Native Americans, so we wanted to give them respect now. How about we avoid all that and we just listen to them now and not do it? And guess what? Then you don't have to build a monument. We just do the right thing from the get-go and, hey, we all win. Yeah, and that's not even an option. Testimony from indigenous representatives, mining experts, and witnesses to the impact of mining disasters. The DFL is a party of labor. It's also the party of the environment. What most Democrats don't want is to be the party of big business. At the convention, the AFL-CIO mustered a considerable resources to fight the resolution to hold a hearing on Prove It First bill. This was not just revisiting an old fight premised on the worn-out dichotomy of the environment versus jobs. Instead, labor had become an unlikely ally for giant mining corporations. This is strange. One of the fundamental roles of unions is to check corporate power. In doing so, unions give us a 40-hour work week, but the middle class built the middle class, brought dignity to work, and fought the health care and other benefits that have made life better for countless millions. But by taking such an extreme stance to oppose even a hearing on the Prove It First bill, the AFL-CIO was working in tandem with some of the more corrupt corporations on the planet. The United Steelworkers has called Glencore, a Swiss-based mining group seeking for the copper sulfide mine in Minnesota, the second worst company on the world to work with, and wrote an entire report, Glencore's History of Broken Promises. But now the AFL-CIO is acting as a political arm of them. This is a bad idea. Now, first of all, I want to make sure you union guys do understand. Remember when they did that whole dog and pony show with Line 3 and how it's going to make our lives so much better? Oh, it's going to make our lives so much better. Remember that? It didn't. And all those union jobs, you all said there's going to be a bunch of union jobs. They already had exclusions. They were shipping up workers from Oklahoma to work minimum wage. Some of the union jobs that were there didn't get paid the amount they did. A lot of them went to Wisconsin, guys. You got screwed. And here you are once again, fighting for what? To get screwed again? Oh, did they promise something? Ask about those promises in these other communities where they said, we'll do this environmentally safe. And you can't even touch the water for 500 years. And by the way, may I make this argument for the unions, AFL-CIO, and the rest of them? If you unionize the tourism workers on the range, you're going to have a much larger, much more powerful entity than a handful of miners, because once again, it is multiple times more tourism workers in northern Minnesota than miners in northern Minnesota. So I'm sorry, I just don't get this. I've always had a version of this bill I've kicked around, which has said that if that the parent company, in this case Glencore, they have to sign a deal before they can move one bit of rock, that every piece of toxified land, water, and air has to be cleaned up for them to get the right to mine. And that they cannot push that right onto another company. They have to basically clean that mess up. They can't change their name. They can't consolidate. It is a liability that will go with them as long as they are in existence, even if they try to shift that around. And my guess is if you did that and you said you had to clean up the mess, Glencore had all of a sudden run away from northern Minnesota saying nothing to see here because they don't want to clean up their own mess. That's my version of this bill. I think the Prove It First bill is a heck of an idea. And it's kind of sad to see a lot of people I respect saying, no, it's not a good idea, even though we're only talking about one of the last pristine natural wildernesses left in the United States. Jeff is in Cambridge. Let's get him in really quick before we go to break. Jeff, thanks for holding. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I was up at the convention and had some discussions on this exact topic. And it was interesting. I talked to some union people, and they had problems about the way the Prove It First was written. The way it's written right now, you have to operate the mine for 10 years and close it, and then have 10 years of good, no environmental damage. And we talked back and forth, and he made a comment to me that I didn't quite catch at first. He said, well, these union workers, they're not going to want to poison the ground. I mean, they live there and everything. And I thought, oh, that sounds reasonable. And then the more I thought about it, wait a minute, you're telling me that this union worker who really battled to get this job, and he finds out that there's a problem, that he's going to walk away from that, and everybody else is, so that they can't run the mine? That's not going to happen either. So,
well, no, Jeff, it's going to become apparent to them, and thanks, Jeff, I appreciate the phone call and the insight. It's going to become apparent to them that they've destroyed everything else, that their wife's tourism job is gone, that their kid's tourism job is gone, and that the only option they have is to make as much money with this mine as long as they can before then they themselves scream, you people down in St. Paul need to send money up here. We're hurting up here. We don't, they poisoned all the water. Who could have ever seen that coming? Oh, you need to spend billions of dollars fixing the land that we so gleefully destroyed. Screw you. No, let's just not do it in the first place. The Prove It First bill has a bit of teeth to it for a reason. If they can't do it environmentally safe, then we shouldn't be doing it anywhere near Minnesota. Come on, this isn't rocket science, people. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Yeah, this one's become, the Prove It First bill has become my new favorite new bill, all right? We'll talk about that coming back a little bit more. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Here's the problem I have with where we're going with our politics now. I was talking to somebody about the fact that I yearn for the days of old politics, where not only could you actually sit down, Democrats and Republicans could sit down and work out a solution, but we looked at solutions that had long-term benefits that mattered to the people way beyond your life and your impact. A great example of that was when we would spend the money on concrete roads, because concrete roads last a long, long time. And considering pretty much every, asphalt paved road I've seen has to be worked on every 2 years, and that there are stretches of concrete roads in this city that are the same exact concrete road I drove on when I was a kid, and I'm 55 now. The obvious cost-effective way to do this is concrete, but to do concrete costs more up front. But in the long term, it saves an insane amount of money as opposed to having to constantly repave a road. Yet we don't even think about that today. We don't. And the reason why is because even though there's a tremendous benefit and definitely a benefit for our society, that benefit won't be achieved until I'm after gone, and will I get the credit, and does it really matter? This whole thing with this bill, I like the prove it first, bro. The people that are against it, the argument they seem to be pushing is, sure, we know those SOBs are going to pollute the crap out of Minnesota. They are. We know it. But we're banking on the fact that we'll long be either dead or retired, that you really can't hold any of us accountable for approving this, and that the state will help bail us out by spending the billions of dollars needed to clean this up, even though there's really no way to clean it up. And that's wildly irresponsible. You should not be approving things you know are wrong just because your argument is, I'll be long either retired or dead before this comes to the negatives of this come to fruition. We used to have politicians with more integrity. And I yearn for the day we do. And we do have some of them out there. We do. But a lot of them today, they're just looking to get their bread buttered. And I'm sorry. I think real leadership is looking and saying, over my freaking dead body, am I going to allow this kind of toxic mining to happen in Minnesota? That's real leadership. And I yearn for those days again. Native Roots Radio is coming up next. Make sure you stick around for them. We're back tomorrow. Till then, see ya.